Hi Stampers, it's Jackie Bolhuis from Klompen Stampers. Today we're making a wedding card, but we're actually using some Christmas products, quote unquote, to make our wedding card. You know, I love Christmas. I love buying products to make Christmas cards, but I really struggle with the fact of buying a lot of stuff for Christmas and then Christmas is over and we're done with that stuff. I really like to make sure that what I purchase, I can use year round and for other occasions. And I also like to teach and show you those kinds of things because I want to make sure if you buy Stampin' Up! Products, especially when you buy them from me, that they're not just to make one card, one and done. You know, that's not wise use of our money. So I have a bunch of fun products I'm going to share with you today as I show you a wedding card. Now, weddings are one of those things I love to customize them to the color of the bride and groom. And we usually kind of know that ahead of time. And every year I kind of come up with like my wedding card, I guess we're going to call it. It's kind of my standard go-to whenever I get a wedding invitation. That's the card I make. That way I don't have to think every time and recreate a new design every time. I kind of have my design and I just change the colors. And that's what I want to share with you today as well. So lots and lots and lots of tips I'm going to share as I go through making this card with you. Tips that will apply to lots of different stamping and lots of different projects that you do. I'm all about teaching. I'm all about teaching quick and easy tips, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So let's flip the camera down and let's get started. I think some of the products that I'm going to use today are going to surprise you. You know, I said I'm going to make a wedding card, but we are actually using the Bells Are Ringing dies. I guess it's called the Detailed Bells die, but it's part of the Bells Are Ringing bundle. I'm not even going to use any of these stamp sets, but make sure you stay with me all the way to the end because I have several cards that are Christmas cards using the stamps and the dies, but we're going to use just the dies on the wedding paper today. The other product I'm going to use, and I'm not sure where it is in here, but I have it sitting underneath. It's this Feels Like Frost Designer Series paper. I know you've been seeing a lot of this. It is stunningly beautiful paper. I've shared some projects. I'm sure I'll probably share some more with you, but flip it over. And this is what we haven't been seeing a whole lot of. It is beautiful on the back. It is a silver foil type paper, very shiny. And there's several prints in here that you really could use for your wedding card. I pulled out, let's see, the stripe one and the polka dots, which I'm not sure if there's any left in the stack, but you'll see it in just a second. So we're using the back side of that. So here's the stamps. Now, like I said, we are not using this, but hang with me all the way to the end because I'll show you some great cards using it. And then the dies, I just pulled out these two. So we're going to just set that there as we get ready to make our card. Now we're going to customize this for a wedding that I have upcoming, and this is kind of their color scheme. Bermuda Bay, one of my favorite colors. So I've already scored the base for our card. This piece is a little different size than we're used to. It's actually 10 by 5.5. Usually we're 8.5 by 5.5, but we're going to make this into a gift card holder. I tend to give gift cards for wedding cards, and I don't like to always just set them in there because I'm always afraid they're going to open it up and it's going to fall out. So I'm going to show you how we're going to hold that gift card in there. So this is actually going to fold up this way. And now we have a normal size card. So let's set that aside. Like I said, I have pre-cut things. And I couldn't decide, this is 3 1/4 by 4.5, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to do stripes or if I wanted to do dots on this one. So we're gonna hold off and decide in a second. Then we have a layer here that's just 1/8 of an inch bigger. Now you hear me say that a lot. When I layer things, and if you go to my blog post, I always have the card recipes there with the measurements. I do a lot of things in eighths. When you cut one layer, and this, what I say this was 4.5 by 3 1/4. Now don't worry about remembering this. This will be all over on the blog there for you. But when I layer things, I tend to layer 1/8 inch bigger. So that's where I get those measurements. So if this is 4.5, this is 4 5/8. 3 1/4 is 3 3/8. So that's going to be our layer there. But before we adhere it on there, we're going to do a little paper saving trick that I like to do. And that is to cut out some dies out of this paper that's going to be hidden, because we're going to layer that like so. So you're not going to see what's underneath here. So I'm going to go to my die cutting machine and I'm going to actually cut 2 of these out of the center. We'll cut one there and you'll never see the hole, but then we'll have these bells to use. So I'll be right back. Okay, there we go. Here are the two bells. Now, like I said, we cut this out so we can still layer this on here, but I'm still not sure which one I want. So we're gonna hold off 1 second on that. And then we're gonna use the other bell die and we're gonna cut it out of a piece of silver foil paper. So we're gonna go cut out 2 of these. There we go. Now we just need to adhere these 2 together. And I have a little trick for you for adhering real detailed dies like this because there's not a lot of space to put adhesive on there. So I use my craft silicone sheet. I don't know, can you see a little shine on some spots? I've got some dry glue on here and I left it on here purposely so I can show you how easy it is to clean up. Once it's dried, you can just rub it off because you always want to use a clean spot for your die. So we got that all cleaned up. What I'm going to do is take my bell and I'm going to flip it upside down. This is where I need adhesive. And then I take my liquid adhesive, I put a blob of it on here. And then I have a stamping sponge that I've just kind of designated as my gluing sponge. And we're going to just stick some glue on there. Doesn't take a ton. That's plenty. And then we'll come over here. And when you do lay this down, you don't want to slide it around a lot because you don't want to get that glue onto the silver. So, but there is one bell. And then now when I do this other one, it looks like we need a little bit more here. I want to make sure I flip this over on a spot that doesn't have wet glue. So I don't want to put it here. We're going to just move it over there, get some more glue for on this one. That way we don't get any glue on the front. And then we can go ahead and stick that one down like so. We'll set that aside. And then when that glue dries, we can just rub it with our finger and we'll get it off. Now we can decide. I'm going to actually stick these bells together. Why don't we go ahead and do that? I'm going to just put adhesive on the back there. I want my bells to be one kind of coming out from the other. So let's go about like so. We'll stick that down. Now this is where I want to decide. Do we want it on the polka dots or do we want it on the stripes? You know what? I did a different card and I used the polka dots. And I think I like the polka dots better. So we'll stick with polka dots here. Now, when we put our adhesive on here, we're going to just go out here along the edges because if we put it in the middle, then it's going to stick down to my paper there and I don't want that. So we'll go ahead and we'll just adhere that down on there. Whoops, like so. And then the next thing we're going to do is emboss using the Subtles embossing folder, a Whisper White layer. So you'll see how this card all goes together in just a second. Now I showed this the other day in a different video. Now I'm kind of addicted to it. I like to, with the Subtles embossing folder, I'm going to run it through this way. And then I'm going to take my cardstock and I'm going to run it through this way. So you actually get those lines going both directions. Now the video and the photos don't really show it, but if you try this, you'll see how cool it looks. So let me go do that. There we go. Now the other thing I did while I was gone is I trimmed this down. When I started, I had this piece at 5.5 by 4 1/4, but we really need it 5 1/4 by 4. But when I do a lot of embossing, you know, it's kind of hard to explain, but your paper actually shrinks up a little bit because, you know, you're getting all that embossing in there. So then the size is never exactly what I want if I cut it first. So I like to cut it a little bit bigger and then emboss it and then just trim off that extra. So we'll adhere that down on there. And then we can adhere this layer. Okay, so we're just building our card. Now remember this, I customize my colors to the wedding that I will be attending. So we could make this in any color. I have another one to show you when I'm done here. So we'll stick that down there like so. That's where we are so far. And then let's grab some dimensionals. Now I have a few more tips here to share with you. So don't leave me now. Next, after I get this on here, I'm going to show you how I get my greetings on straight because that's always one of those things that really drive me crazy when I stamp my greetings crooked. So I'll show you my tricks for that. And then we're going to add a fun bow. Our card will almost be done. So there's our bells. So let's go ahead and just set this aside. And I have a piece of scrap here of Whisper White, and we're going to start working on our greetings. Now the set I have is an older one. It's called Special Celebrations, but this worked perfect for what I was making. We're going to use the For a Special Couple, along with the, this one right here, side by side together we stand. Great inside and outside verses, like I like to call them. Now, for our outside, we're going to use the For a Special Couple. And I did not worry about putting this stamp straight on my block, because if you look through here, the top of the stamp is perfectly straight. And I always check that by, if I stamp it on grid paper and I line up the top of that stamp along this top line right there, I can see that it's nice and straight. So for my greeting banner, what I'm going to do is on the scrap, I am going to, and hopefully I don't have my head in the way here, I am going to stamp, doing the same thing. I'm going to line up the stamp itself right along the top, and then I know it's straight on there. Now, people ask me all the time, how do you know what size to cut it? I really don't know what size to cut this. With long greetings like this that I just want to strip, what I do is I stamp along the edge here, and then I can go ahead and put it in the paper trimmer. Now we know we're going to trim right on this edge right there, so I can kind of slide it over and decide where do I want it to be. And that looks good. And then I trim it. So I don't even know what size this is, and it really doesn't matter. Now, I do know though that I need it, my length, I need that to be, I want it to be the same size as my silver here, which was 3 1/4. So I'll just go ahead and I'll trim off that edge. Still getting used to this new cutter. And then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to come out here to 3 1/4, and we'll cut off that edge. So this should fit now. Let's hope anyway. And we're going to go ahead, and that's going to layer perfect right there. So we'll put some adhesive on the back of this one. And then after we do this, I'll show you my little bow trick. So we'll put that right there down along the bottom. Now for my bow, I want to use a piece, because I've got the silver theme going. This is the white ribbon with that silver edge. And I already cut a piece, but I have this cheater bow maker. Someone gave this to me many years ago. And I know you can buy these like on Etsy. Just search bow makers. But all you do is you take your piece of ribbon, you wrap it around, take one to that front and bring it through. I'm kind of going fast here, but my intent really isn't to show you how to use the bow maker, because if you get one, they'll show you how to do it. But it's that simple to make a nice bow. Now, for whatever reason, my tails are going 2 different ways here. Let's bring that down. So there's our little bow. Then I'm just going to take my scissors and trim this. So we're just going to trim our ends here to get it the length I want. Let's see, is that good? There we go. And then I like to stick these down with a glue dot. So we'll just go ahead and we'll put a glue dot on the back. Make sure it sticks on there and our tails are where we want it. And we'll stick our little bow up there. There's the front of our card. And then for the inside, we're going to go ahead and take a piece that's 4 by 5 1/4. We'll take this other greeting. Now, this one I did a little different to get it straight. I made sure it's straight on my block. And by doing that, I actually took it upside down. I lined up the top with the grid paper, and then I put my block down to pick it up, and I lined that up on grid lines. And then I always like to test it. So then we're going to stamp lining the block up, and it looks pretty darn straight. So now when I stamp on my piece here, I can line up this edge with this edge, and I should be straight. So let's see if that works. There we go. So that is going to be the inside of our card. So we'll go ahead and adhere that down. So lots of tips I shared with you, and then we're almost done with this card. And then I'm going to show you some Christmas cards that you can make with this bundle. Oh, we're sliding. Okay. And then one last little thing. I said this is to hold our gift card. So this extra little flap here, I'm going to just take a circle punch. Doesn't matter what size, and just cut a little divot in it there. And then I can take my adhesive, and I'm going to put just a little bit on the top and a little bit on the bottom and adhere that down. Now there's my little pocket. So my gift card, and I don't have one here, but it'll tuck in there really nice. And then we know it's not going to fall out. So there's our wedding card. Here is the other one I made. This one I used the Mary Merlot. Again, trying to coordinate with the different weddings that I'm going to. So like I said, this is gonna be my standard wedding card. So I'll just customize it each time. So let me go ahead, set these aside, and let me grab you the other cards I wanna share with you. Now with all of these, I use the Brightly Gleaming Designer Series paper. And I'm not gonna make any of these for you. I just wanna show them to you. And I will have over on the blog pictures of all of these along with the measurements, the card recipes. So if you'd like to make them, you certainly can. So I pulled the colors from the Designer Series paper. I'll ring in the new year, just stamp some bells inside. These bells are gorgeous. Here's the copper paper. So, and you can see the subtle embossing there. This one I was using up a bunch of scraps of that Designer Series paper. Quite a few layers here, but really didn't take long to cut them. We've got our subtles going again. And then inside we just kind of stamped the bells. So it coordinates with the bells on the front. I think this is my favorite. Just made a frame using the stitched rectangle dies. And then you can see the bells in there. Again, a little stamping on the inside. And then if you like copper, this one's all about those copper bells. Isn't that pretty? Just did a bunch of bells. These are actually colored with Stampin' Blends. And then here we stamped the inks down there. Again, a few scraps of Designer Series paper and the inside. So there are 4 Christmas card ideas for you. And again, I'll have pictures of these as well as all the measurements over on the blog for you. Down in the video description will be a link to that so you can easily find it. And then here's our 2 wedding cards. So I hope you liked today's projects. Had a lot going on there. Had a lot of tips that I shared with you. Hopefully those are tips that you'll be able to use in all of your stamping. It doesn't have to be a Christmas card or a wedding card. So hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back again sometime real soon to stamp with you again. But until then, have a stamp happy day.